Welcome to HR Voices, a podcast where people leaders share their side of the story. We talk about the challenges they're facing, how they're addressing them, and what changes they hope to see as the workplace evolves. This podcast is sponsored by All Voices, the all-in-one employee relations platform. Hello, and welcome to HR Voices. I'm your host, Rebecca Taylor, and I'm here with Julianne Galli, the VP of People at Kindbody. Julianne, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited because I know that we have a scenario today that I think anybody who's listening to this, whether you're in HR or not, is going to be sitting there like, yep, this is me. It is either me now or it's been me before. So I don't know about you, but I'm excited to dive into this one.
Oh, I'm very excited. I love to explore, all different scenarios that we'll come across in our past. And of course, they'll come across them again.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the fun part of like HR too, is like usually it can kind of feel like Groundhog Day. It's just like different versions of the same type of problem that keeps on coming up, but every day is different and you never know what's going to happen.
And always different challenges and different solutions, even if it feels similar.
Yeah, exactly. The context is what matters, right? Yeah. Well, I'm gonna read our scenario out and then we can kind of dive into what we're going to be talking through with all of this. So we're calling this one the Demotion That Wasn't. A senior director is given a new title that replaces senior director, quote, with, quote, director of special projects. His pay remains the same. His direct reports are assigned to a peer. His new role involves no team management, but he's told the change is a realignment, not a demotion. He's 61 years old. He files an age discrimination complaint, arguing the role change is a constructive demotion designed to push him out before he reaches full pension vesting, which occurs in 8 months. HR's documentation shows no performance concerns. The realignment, quote unquote, was decided in a conversation with no HR involvement. So, thinking about so many different ways that I'm seeing versions of this show up in sort of the workforce today. But before we even get into any of that, Julianne, from a very high level, what stands out to you as the most risky or the most unclear in this scenario as it's laid out right now?
I mean, as it's laid out, right? His age, we're concerned, right? He has an age discrimination complaint for sure there. And the first thing I think about, right, is now, why wasn't HR involved? Why was HR not seen as a partner in this? What if it is a realignment that needed to happen in the department? HR should have been involved right away as a partner in it. And we see what happens when HR is brought in as cleanup.
And cleanup we do sometimes with these types of things. So as you're I agree. I think like the age, he definitely has sort of grounds for a complaint like this from what we can see right now, right? There's been no performance issues. It seems very coincidental that this is happening, when he's getting closer to his pension.
Right.
And so the fact that HR wasn't involved, it always makes me wonder, this is a fabricated scenario. These are not real people. So there's always sort of missing pieces that we kind of just have to work with. But it makes me wonder, was HR not involved because people didn't think to involve HR, or was HR not involved because people intentionally didn't want to involve HR? You know what I mean? The difference between those two?
Yes. I mean, that was what I was thinking right away too. And besides, also I want to know, which obviously they're fabricated, his peer, what's the age of his peer too? I think is also, something that he can then bring up as well, right? So we have the age situation, and then no performance documentation, this realignment without partnership from HR. And right, was it purposeful that HR wasn't involved, or was it just, as we know, sometimes we can have leaders moving so rapidly that just making these decisions and they're not fully thinking about consequences of their decisions and who is there as their partner in it. And I'm not trying to then also place blame on the HR side either, because we have so much going on. But I also want to know, what is the partnership like that they didn't think of that if it wasn't done purposefully?
Yeah. Even if it was, I'd be like, what's the relationship like? Because that's not a great sign either, right?
Right. Of course. But, we do know sometimes we can be the most fantastic partners. And sometimes, we're still.
Because it's like they see us as like, you're going to introduce friction. And sometimes it's like, well, yes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I'm not here to just be I'm not here to just say no to everything, but it is kind of my job to be objective and insert friction where friction might need to be, like in a situation like this. Just, I don't know how many times, like my favorite tagline is always, have you considered X? Like, that's just how I would start so many questions. Like, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Because that's usually the way that I figured out how to ask people, what were you thinking, without sounding confrontational in a bad way. So
I think that's a really difficult role that we play, right? And I've experienced this and talk amongst our team about this, right? Like we have to be advisors and people need to see us as partners. And it can be frustrating sometimes when our advice is taken as we're purposely trying to create obstacles for them. And that is not what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to see what's best for our people, what's best for the business. And we know that there's not always a very clear answer for things, but we're trying to help and be a partner to these leaders and to all of the people in the organization to make the best decisions for both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And so so now let's kind of get into, all right, this lands on your desk. All of these factors are here. What do you do next? Like, are you having conversations with people next? Are you looking for data and finding information first? What's kind of your order of operations for how you would kind of start to figure out what's going on?
My legal partner first, whether that's, if I have someone in-house or we partner with someone externally, definitely want to work with them to run by the situation and then follow their guidance as well, right? Because we have to look at that risk, right? We have to look at the risk for the organization. And then I need to meet with the leader of the department that made the decision. And I want to dig into what happened there, right? Why weren't we involved? Yeah. And I want to meet with this individual as well. And when I meet the individual, I'm there as it's more about me, like a fact-finding mission for them. And also to make sure that they feel that I'm listening to them and I'm here to help them through this process as well, right? So definitely not coming in any sort of bias angle, any sort of way to try to convince them that this wasn't what they feel it may be, but I'm here to help figure this out with them and with, the leader of the department that did this realignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's interesting about the way this is written in here is that he files an age discrimination complaint. So I look at that as he filed an internal one, not like an EEOC claim.
Oh, okay.
But that again, that could be up to any interpretation, but usually they're kind of like called out. So they're filing a discrimination complaint. And so I think, would you talk to him first, I guess? Like you'd talk to him first about the complaint and then kind of maybe walk through what the process would be to investigate it? Like, I would to the employee.
Came and filed to me the complaint. Okay.
Yes.
Thinking got an outside complaint. Yes, of course. Well, then we want to see, does he want us? We'll talk through what, an age discrimination complaint would look like. Is that what he feels like it was? If he, then again, reiterates, yes, he feels that this was based on his age and based to push him out, then we go into an investigation and I want to talk to as many people that were involved in this as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I imagine you want to talk to at least the supervisor who made the decision.
Yes.
At minimum, right? Who else are you talking to in this process?
I would, when I talk to the supervisor who made this decision, who else was involved?
Yeah.
Get themselves. Like, I don't know if what they're going to say, right? I think it depends what they're going to say.
Yeah.
Are they going to say this decision was based on performance? Right. And then I want to find out, well, how come we don't know anything about it?
Because our documentation doesn't show that.
We have no documentation on performance. Do you have any documentation on performance? What has been tried to coach and counsel this individual before any of these things have happened?
Yeah.
Or was this really a business need? And then again, why wasn't this done in partnership with me or my team?
Yeah. Yeah, because role reassignment is something you can't really just do on your own willy-nilly as a leader or as a manager typically, right? Like it has to be something that, could be, depending on the size of the company, there could be, most companies have some kind of a process, but also the larger you get, the more of a paper trail you need for evidence that a role does need to be reassigned, or even just to justify, because technically you have to justify opening a new role that you're putting someone into. So
Yeah.
I'm always curious, like, how do you reassign someone without involving HR?
Well, and then if you're thinking about there's this new role, are you, again, what about budgeting?
Yeah,
Like, how did we plan for this? Is there any workforce planning that has gone into this?
yeah,
And it's, yes, I mean, there's so many different layers that they haven't approached and they need to work on. And it's not just moving your team around like they're like chess players on a board. Like
yeah,
we need to see where that fits in the organization. And like I said, planning wise, as well as any risks that may come
yeah,
up.
yeah. And speaking of risks, I'm curious about sort of what you think about timeline and timing, because usually there's sort of a balance between wanting to move it you want to move it in appropriate speed, right? Sometimes too fast and you can miss things, too slow and things can just, linger too much and grow kind of in that time. So how do you kind of balance speed with accuracy in a case like this? If you can, because sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's kind of like you just kind of have to try your best.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how many resources you have. I mean, as we all know, we would all say we probably don't have as many
Sort of enough.
yeah, ever, right? We're always, an investigation comes up and it takes a lot of time. But
Yeah.
if you want to do it right, and hopefully you can work, whatever your team looks like, you can work with, your teammates, your colleagues on some other priorities that you may have. And that's why we all jump in and help each other out, right? And you can have someone that can focus on this to make sure that they get all of the information as quickly as possible. We've had situations like that too, where it's like, okay, we need to come to a conclusion quickly, and someone has to focus on it. Spend the next day or two just interviewing and meeting with people and making sure all their documentation is right, and analyzing, and then coming to a conclusion. And the other things, we have to reprioritize, or other people have to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. It's kind of one of those ones where I think the more resources you have, the better, but acknowledging most of us don't have enough ever, especially when it's something that you're just not expecting, where it's like, okay, I have all these other balls in the air. Now I have to add this investigation and balance that. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. But on one hand, it's what, I mean, I know I don't want to sound silly that these things are like exciting, because they're not, they're unfortunate.
Yeah.
It makes the role very interesting, right? Every
Yeah.
day, like we said, like, yeah, sometimes you come across, similar situations, but there are always different nuances with them that you need to discover. And they're always great learning opportunities, not just for you or your team, but for the leaders.
Yeah.
So you just have to be prepared and that's why you make sure that you have the right operational processes on your team, so that when something like this comes up, you can focus on it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not so dragged down in all this other kind of work and admin work and working so inefficiently that you don't have the bandwidth for parts of the job that come up that just aren't expected.
Right? Like this is not something AI can do. It may be able to assist you.
Yeah. But AI cannot do an investigation like this.
But,
No.
as of right now, AI cannot go and do an investigation in
Yeah.
an organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of what's funny is like we're an AI employee relations platform. That's what All Voices is. But we will always say that like we're here to make it easier for you to organize your documentation, to set up your consistent workflow. But like we're not making any decisions for you. We're just going to surface things. We'll tell you, maybe this person had previous cases that they were involved in that might influence another case that's here, whatever that is. But it is all up to you to have the witness conversations, to then take everything that you see and then figure out kind of what you're going to do. Because I'm like, it would scare me to think that AI is making those types of decisions for some folks. Hopefully they're not.
So that's what would allow you now, when something like this pops up,
Yeah.
you have a tool like that, right?
Yeah.
You can address it and address it accurately and the way that you need to, right?
Yeah.
And the attention that you need to pay to it, right? And
Yeah.
that because you have that, that
Yeah.
taken care of. So you don't have to worry so much about that administrative burden.
Yeah.
Like, am I going in the right direction? Like, I have some guidance there,
Yeah.
but stuff that I can really focus on. Now I can do that and put more of, my time and energy and mental energy into it.
Yeah. Into like the complicated, like nuanced, messy part of this whole thing. Cause that, believe me, that is there. That will always kind of be there. Cause we're people. People are just messy. And I say that like affectionately because
Right.
it's part of what makes us us, but it's the thing that we're always going to be kind of balancing in HR too.
Like, you could meet with this leader who made this decision, right? And it's quite possible this person came from the best place ever.
Yeah.
Right? They were like, look, this individual, we have this need for this special projects, thought that they would be fantastic on it, but managing people is, not their favorite, or maybe managing people will be really hard for them to focus on this project. I thought it would be a great thing for them to do. It's possible. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
possible. And you need to take the time to discover what it was. And then it's a learning opportunity for that leader too, right?
Yeah.
Had the best intentions in mind, but this is something that you need to work on with us, with
Yeah.
the individual. There's so many different
Yeah.
things here.
Yeah. Like maybe you had good intention, but you didn't consider these things that are now the part that we are now dealing with that make this an issue. Because it's kind of funny because like, I always like to believe that people have the best of intentions in these types of scenarios too. Is just, that I don't believe that anybody wakes up saying, who can I really screw over today? Like, I really don't think we're doing that. So when I see something like this too, like if you read this in a different lens, like with different approach to what the ultimate result is, it could look like succession planning, but poorly communicated and poorly strategized succession planning. If this person, like if their pension's going to vest, if they do want to, maybe they've communicated that they want to retire when their pension vests, right? Like making lots of assumptions here. But it's like either way, this person, may be leaving the workforce or leaving the company at some point. And so maybe all the direct reports, they want to have the time to move them to different people to allow this person to exit and not make their last few months crazy to do that. But if we look at it as sort of like an extreme version, the result could be the same, but we wouldn't be getting to a discrimination situation if that was something that was done in partnership with the employee, in partnership with HR,
Right.
clearly communicated intention, all the things that are missing in this description.
And then you can say, we could also look at it like, does the HR department have a clear process for succession planning?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many different possibilities here.
Yeah.
But because they weren't addressed, that individual right away says, this is the reason why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is what you need to really account for when you are making these decisions and changes, right? You need to think about, well, even if that's not what it looks like, it is. Can it look like that to that individual? And how do we have to account for that as we're working with them?
Yeah. Like this is what makes HR really good empathizers too. And when we're brought into these kinds of conversations is we can almost play out a conversation from so many different angles, just sort of seeing, like, well, this person could receive this information like this, or they could receive it like this. We need to make sure that we're presenting it so that it has the desired impact as much as possible, but also give them the space to have maybe an uncomfortable conversation with us. It's like we're not to toot our horn, but I think we're good at kind of just, thinking through all the different ways people can respond to things and just being ready for that, because that's the thing. That's where a lot of these types of changes can really fall, is just in the communication part, where things can just get misinterpreted and then get blown up into something. Or, this is assuming this wasn't truly ageism coming out, right? It was just maybe just poor communication, weird decision making, whatever we want to bucket it into. But the communication is where things can really kind of get hairy, because if it's not done right and intention isn't clear, people do have rights to submit claims because they could be true.
Sure. I have no evidence to the contrary. If this wasn't discussed with me and I don't understand the business rationale around it,
Yep.
What else can I point to?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I have to go where the evidence is, because if this does go to court, guess what? That's what I have to do. I have to go with the evidence that's there, not what were you thinking or what were you feeling when this happened?
It's, so I think, one could say, how do you avoid this?
I was going to ask, do you have advice for HR people who want to maybe avoid this or?
I always say it does start with that partnership.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to avoid everything, right? Some people are just moving so rapidly and you try your absolute best always.
Yeah.
But it definitely starts with that partnership. And I think where things get really difficult sometimes is when, and again, I love my HR people. I am an HR. But when we come in as like gatekeepers and as like, I had an old leader that was like, don't be the HR police, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We do have a reputation.
Yeah. And, and it's true. But at the same time, if they have, like, I am
Right.
also charged with helping to mitigate these risks, right?
Yeah.
And also making a great employee experience too. So you need to be that partner, and you need to make sure that you are developing a rapport with all in the organization. And it is difficult because then sometimes I definitely hopped on a meeting and someone's like, oh no, you're on a meeting with me on a Friday. And I'm like, no, that's
Yeah. And I hate that. I know. I hate that.
yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, but you have to start there.
Yeah.
So, and again, in this situation, the HR partner was a great partner to this person and they just moved really quickly and they didn't even think.
Yeah.
But I think it will definitely help if you develop the rapport, have, consistent meetings, or have a partner that has consistent meetings with the leaders in the organization. And we're always talking through, well, what are your plans? What does the team look like? What's going on in the team? What's going on in the business? And you understand the business, right? That's another thing. Have to really understand the business. If this is a true business need, we in HR, or at least the leader, right, should know what's happening and why it's be needed, right? Why this move in this department might be needed. And then they can come in and then help guide through it, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, I understand this is a business need. I understand this is a focus, right?
Yeah.
Like this, but, and what did you say in the beginning? Have you
considered this?
Considered, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we go from there.
Yeah.
So it always, I think, starts with the relationship. And if you build that first and foremost, you can help mitigate a lot of these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's such good advice. It's such good advice. And thank you for sharing that, because I think that's like the part that we're all moving so quickly and thinking about AI transformation and all this stuff. And I think that sometimes maybe we're missing some of the basics of just like preserving relationships, maintaining relationships, so that ideally you can mitigate some things, but whatever you can't mitigate, that you can solve it more effectively, or, at least be tied enough to the business to kind of know, maybe there's something brewing here that I should make my business to understand. Because that helps, as like, everyone sort of will complain about HR being the police, but sometimes it's like, well, it's because if this doesn't go right, then it's on me to fix it. And if I'm accountable to it, I need to be involved in it somehow.
If we're, and I, again, don't want to just sound like I'm just using, buzzwords, but like if we definitely have that seat at the table.
Yeah.
And we understand what's going on from a business side, a change management side, then we don't need to be cleanup and we don't need to be the police, right? Because there, and as the strategy's happening, we're talking about, okay, here are the possibilities, right?
Yeah.
The other things we need to think about. And we're not knowing people, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, you can't, I'm a partner. I'm bringing my perspective. Finance is bringing their perspective. IT is bringing theirs. And then, somebody got to go slow to go fast.
Yeah.
Figure that out. And then you can make the move.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of your insight and everything, into this. Believe it or not, we're actually at time. And I was going to ask what other advice you had for HR folks, because I think you've given sort of a lot, but any other final piece of advice you want to share before we wrap? I know, the big sigh, because like there's so much. There's like, where do we even start?
I really would say, and like, I think my biggest piece of advice is being that partner, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do hold that information that others may not think about or may not know, right?
Yeah.
And also always remember that sometimes there isn't a right answer. A lot of
Mm.
isn't a right answer. So even though, you can come across and you're like, this is right, this is what it says. If I go back in my books and this is what I read and this is exactly what it says, barring something legal, right? And unethical.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always nuance, like we were talking about, right? And there's always partnership. And even sometimes when you're struggling partnering with a leader, you need to figure out what motivates them and work with them on that so that you can get to this place where you're not that seen as almost like someone who causes friction.
Yeah.
So again, I've said it, but I really think the relationship is one, and understanding different styles to develop that relationship.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so good. That's so good. Thank you, Julianne. Thank you for your perspective and for walking through this scenario. And if you're an HR person listening to this, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to offer Julianne as well. Feel free to reach out to us, because I really think that it takes a village, and we're just sort of in this time where we're all learning as we go. And so, I think that the tagline for me for this episode is that there isn't always a right answer, because that's so true. It's so hard to accept sometimes, but it's true. Sometimes you just kind of have to do the best and then the next best thing, right? So thank you.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everybody for listening, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.